Okay, let's try this again. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Charles Nyabeze, and I'm the Vice President, Business Development and Commercialization with the Center for Excellence in Mining Innovation. I would like to welcome everybody to the call. This is a national call and also with some international participants coming from across Canada. And I'm looking forward to having a discussion with you all about the MICA second call for proposals. But before we jump into the proposal itself, into the presentation itself, I would like to start off by acknowledging where I am here in Sudbury, Ontario, which is Robinson Region Treaty Area, territory area, and the land in which I'm in right now is the traditional territory of the Atikmashag Anishinabeg. So I wanted to acknowledge where we are and on whose land we are sitting on today here in Sudbury area. For those of you who don't know about SEMI, I wanted to give a bit of a background story so that we can have some context as to why we are here today talking about the Mining Innovation Commercialization Accelerator. So SEMI is a 15-year-old organization, not-for-profit by designation, and we were started by the ecosystem that supports the mining industry. So effectively, yes, we are a not-for-profit organization based out of Sudbury, Ontario, with another headquarters for MICA in Toronto. Our vision for SEMI is to help solve the challenges of the mining industry as soon as possible. And our mission is to advance innovation in a way that impacts, obviously, the people that are affected by mining, the social side of mining, and also impacting the profit. We want to make sure that mining remains economically viable. And we also want to ensure that mining does not impact the environment in a negative way. So if you look at some of the more technical components of our mission, we do want to make the mining industry a better performer than it is right now for the benefit of the society that it services. So SEMI, with its mission and its vision, gave birth, if you want to call it that, to the Mining Innovation Commercialization Accelerator. And it is a $40 million federally funded program, which we're going to leverage that $40 million from the federal government to create a program with a value of about $100 million over the next couple of years. So we are expecting MICA to run all the way to 2026. In terms of our mission and vision for MICA, our vision is to create the national innovation network across the country and to accelerate the commercialization of innovation into the mining industry. And you can see here that we do have 6 main partners from across Canada, and I will speak a little bit more to who they are in the next slide. So you can see here that our main partners are spread all across Canada. We've got Brim, where we've got Janice Fingler in Brim as our contact for the BC area, and also up towards the Yukon. And we do have Innotech Alberta with Gary Fisher in Alberta, and Saskatchewan, we've got Paul Labe with Sask Polytechnic, who's available to work with us. And in the East Coast, we've got Gary and Michael. I think I put Gary's name here, but there's Michael as well, who are with the College of North Atlantic on the East Coast. And in Quebec, we've like Group MISA with Hashmi as our contact, and you can see details here as well. And then in the Toronto GTA area, we've got Maz with Naveen Sundu, who is our contact there. And SEMI, of course, is the MICA headquarters, and I also put some information here for you to see. So you can see from this map here that MICA is indeed a national network. So SEMI itself has a mining innovation niche that we work on. And okay, we do understand that there's different types of innovation. You know, there's that incremental, disruptive, architectural, and radical innovation. But we do view research as the way to create that new knowledge. New knowledge creates new innovations create new applications. And these new applications create new business solutions. So we're very, very interested in how those new innovations create new applications that then translate into those business solutions that can become operationalized. If you look at the technology readiness level scale, which I'm showing you here, there's other scales that we also respect, such as the commercialization readiness level scales. But if you look at the TRL scale, you'll see that we are looking at TRL levels that are a little bit more mature because we're now looking for fundamental research ideas with SEMI. We want to work with those mature ideas that can then move into the industry more quickly. Over the last 15 years, SEMI has synthesized its business services into 4 core services, and you can see them here. We've got innovation scouting, challenge identification. We've also got challenge solution matching, and also we have commercialization services that we offer. And MICA is an outcome of us synthesizing our services and being able to package them in such a way that we can offer them to the nation in a more meaningful way. You can see from this slide here that MICA does have a national network ecosystem that we service. And in fact, this is the ecosystem that actually supports the translation of an innovation all the way up to it becoming a solution that becomes a commodity that can be purchased off the shelf somewhere. So we do say here at SEMI and MICA that it takes an ecosystem to commercialize an innovation. And these are the different players that we want to work with to advance innovations into the industry. The next thing I want to show you is a bit of a background on the MICA fund itself, so you can see how that works. So the $40 million that we have got set aside for us by the federal government, $10 million of that will go towards this network support component. Technical projects are $30 million. We just recently allocated $11.5 million to 16 projects from across the nation. And we recently opened up our next call for proposals, which you are here to learn about. We just opened up our next call for proposals for funding, and we're looking to allocate up to $18.5 million through the second call for proposals. In terms of how the funding works, you can have a funding stacking limit of up to 75% of public sector funding, and MICA is looking to put up to 30% to an upper limit of $2 million on a project. So even if your project is $100 million, the most you can put in is $2 million on a project, just to bring some clarity there. And we do need you to have an SME Canadian partner on a project. And again, that SME partner yourself needs to be incorporated as a Canadian company to be able to access that MICA funding. The next thing I want to show you here is just the benefits to mine operators. This is one of the questions that we get asked a lot about MICA and who benefits from MICA and how do mining companies benefit. So you can see here the mining operators, the mining companies that are revenue positive and working and producing minerals and metals. We want this to be MICA to be a place for them to early adopt technologies. We also want them to be able to utilize their own assets as demonstration sites for MICA technologies and as a mechanism to identify those innovative solutions that can support their organizations. Another benefit of being part of MICA for mine operators is that there's a collaborative space, knowledge sharing space, where you don't have to reinvent the wheel and you don't have to go at it alone. So you come to MICA and sort of find that common ground with other companies on projects that are diverse. Mining companies can also leverage the MICA funding through their partnerships that they have. And really important, there's an opportunity to participate in network activities as part of the mining company benefit. So everyone else sort of in the ecosystem has also an opportunity to benefit from being a part of MICA. MICA funding is important. It's not the only reason why you want to come to MICA for sure, but certainly there's those economic and community development opportunities that come with market development, a place to find those complementary technologies. Capacity building services will be offered to you as well. And commercial capabilities is something that we're going to be offering as well through the network. People do want investment, follow-on funding, and capital attraction can also be funded through MICA. And that cross-sector collaboration is important, especially now that we're looking at crossover technologies from other sectors of the economy into the mining industry. And many people have asked for this first commercial customer. Everybody's interested in finding a mechanism to secure that first commercial customer. Next, I want to talk to you about the commercialization services that MICA offers. Again, this is an example of the buckets of options available to help you to move your technology forward. One of the things I would like to say is that in order to accelerate your innovation into the mining sector, right, you need to identify where your gaps are, where your challenges are. And what MICA strives to do is fill some of those gaps by giving you access to some of these services that are important. Another thing we want to let you know here is that we want to get to know you better as a company. So we want to do things like a readiness assessment, want to do things like evaluations, client testing and adoption of technology. Some of your technologies may need help with intellectual property navigation. So that's another piece that we have for you. And we also want to make sure that we giving you access to partnerships and an opportunity to get those case studies done. So these are just some of the examples of the core commercialization services that we want to offer you as we help you to bridge that gap between your technology being an application and being an application that's adopted for utilization in an industry. The next slide I want to show you here is our network key activities. So as a network, as a national, now going international network, we want to offer our network partners an opportunity for cross-sector engagement, for also those technology-specific working groups, seminars, and we also want to offer an opportunity for showcasing technologies, trade shows and conferences. We've been attending a few already, things like CIN, PDAC, want to bring the network to a place of visibility. And we also want to attend international conferences like, for example, Mining in Durban and others that we have an interest in. Demo days are something that we are picking up from our MICA members, where we want to showcase different technologies in groups so that we can get that awareness up to the level that allows those technologies to get support that they need to move forward with things like financing and follow-on funding. Another thing we want to do is custom events. And these custom events are going to be based on what the users are and our members, our main partners are requesting from us. So we want to do custom events. This could include different kinds of webinars or just attending events that are not traditionally mining related technologies. And again, I did mention webinars is something that we want to do to move things forward. Many of you have asked us about our membership model for MICA. So here is what it is. We have advanced our membership a little bit now because we've now opened up international membership to junior mining companies and mine operators and also to private sector companies. You can see from this slide here that the way that we have the membership laid out, we do have it in US dollars for the international piece, but going back to the Canadian pricing, we do have options for students, for associates, and then SME level memberships. All these SME level memberships plus allow you to be able to access MICA funding as well. And then we have the junior mining company memberships and the mine operating company memberships and the international, as I've mentioned. One feature I want to just highlight for everybody here is that we now have the option for you to do what we call multi-year pricing is now available for membership. So you can actually speak to us about that, where we may be able to give you that option where you can actually pay for your membership for a longer period of time at a discounted rate. So that's something that's interesting for those who want to save a little bit of money while, you know, solidifying your relationship with MICA. Many people ask the question, how do I get a MICA membership? How do I become a member of MICA, right? How do I join this network, subscribe to this network? So it starts off right here with you requesting a membership. So when I do send you the slides, again, everyone is going to get a copy of the slides. You'll be able to just click right here and start the process of a membership. Again, we will interview you to see if you're eligible for membership, and there'll be an approval process. We'll obviously make sure that we get the payment for your subscription. And then there's that onboarding piece where we onboard you to the MICA portal as a place where you're going to be able to get that other value add for your membership. I just want to take a moment here to just acknowledge some of the mining companies that we have worked with as we're doing our initial call for proposals. So I will give you sort of a context as to where they fit in exactly, but one of the things that we've done is that all the incoming projects, so all incoming projects into the MICA network, we want to make sure these incoming projects are viewed by mining companies who then give us an idea on as to whether or not this network is, the projects in the network are suitable for them as an operation. So these are the people that we are reaching out to seek their input on whether or not the projects that MICA is presenting are of value to them as companies. And we're actually increasing the number of companies here. We want to increase as many companies as possible so that we can have those companies also aware of what is inside the MICA portfolio of projects. So we had a call for proposals that we launched February of 2021, and we then approved, February of 2022, not 2021, February 2022, we launched a call for proposals. And as a result of that call for proposals from February, we've now chosen 16 companies that we're going to be funding to a tune of $15 million. And I wanted just to give you an idea here that those $15 million that we are allocating towards projects, that's being leveraged to a total of $39 million. So if you just look at some of the multipliers, you can see that once MICA has allocated all its funding, we're expecting to be a little bit over $100 million in terms of how much we are going to be allocating to the network. This is an example again of those companies with their logos. So you can see these are the 16 companies that are moving forward with MICA funding from the first round. And this is just to show you who those companies are. So I want to bring your attention to the percentage of MICA funding here. What we're going to be doing for this new round is this number is going to go to 30% is what number we're going to be running with. So I want to just bring that up so that you can see that there. Okay, so I wanted to give you a bit of an overview of sort of, where MICA came from, kind of give you a little bit of a background and what happened with the last call for proposals. So now we're going to switch gears and now we're going to move into talking to you about the second call for proposals, because I'm quite sure most of you are on the call to get a bit more context as to what we'll be talking about in the second call for proposals. So just off the bat, the second call is now open. We opened the door December the 1st, which was last week, Thursday, for you to be able to submit your proposals. And for those of you who have your phones on hand, if you just put your phone over this QR code, you'll be able to actually open the page where you can look at the submission process. And I'll be going there as well during this call and kind of walking you through that whole process so you can see what it looks like. So the second call for proposals is open, and we're looking for technologies that are under 4 pillars, okay? So productivity, energy, smart, and environment. These are the 4 technology-focused areas that we're looking for proposals. And just to give you a bit more context on the 4 areas, we're looking at clean technologies that can help mines increase their productive capacity, obviously at a lower cost. But really, you know what, sometimes costs can be a higher cost with more productive capacity and also at the same time, you know, resulting in more efficiencies in place. So we are looking at energy. We're looking at technologies that are going to reduce the energy consumption and GHG emissions by the industry. I do have an expanded listing of the types of technologies that we're looking at under each of these pillars, and I'll be making that available to you with a slide deck that I'm going to send to you. You can also see here that we've got a smart pillar where we're looking at implementing smart autonomous digital mining systems. The truth is the mining industry as we know it today is moving towards digital, and the truth is the future of the mining industry is autonomous. It's automated, right? Less people underground in dangerous places. The other pillar here is environment. I think we all can acknowledge that the environment is important. We are looking for technologies that can reduce environmental risk and technologies that can also help us to reduce those long-term liabilities that are associated with mining. So we do have a big desire to make sure that mining is clean and green and that mining is a good contributor to the low carbon economy in as meaningful way as possible. So the technologies that we're looking for are going to allow mining to be that contributor to the economy. You'll see from the next slide here that we look at mining as the whole mining value chain, right? I want to emphasize here that for us, mining is more than just a hole in the ground, right? It's more than just that open pit, that shaft. It's the whole end-to-end from prospecting, exploration, you know, where we get the investment, permitting, the design and construction, where we do have that production and extraction happening and mineral processing. And also very important for mining is what do we do with the reject materials, right? Those reject materials, tailings, AKA waste. We want to make sure that mining is finding technologies that can help these areas out. Also, the issues around remediation and mine closure are important. And also post-closure management and what we do in terms of repurposing mine assets. We're very, very interested in that as well, in what do we do with these and what technologies are available to move these things forward. So before I leave this slide, I want to just emphasize to everybody that we are looking for technologies across the entire mining value chain and not just technologies that are useful in one area of mining, because mining is a lot bigger than what most people even envision it to be. So now let's talk about the process. So the second call for proposals is open. I say December the 1st, we opened it up, 2022, of course, and we plan to close it January the 13th. And I just want to thank some of our MICA main partners who really emphasized to us to extend it from the January the 6th, because initially we were going to close on the 6th of January, but we opened it up to January the 13th because we want to give you more time. And we will be closing that call at 11:59 p.m. Eastern time. And now I should start mentioning to you that we do have a portal where you can submit your applications. Once you get into that portal, don't be in a rush to hit submit, okay? You can come back into the portal, save your work, and really sort of refine it over time. So take your time to make sure that you're putting in good content into that portal. And you can see here that once we receive your applications on January the 13th, we're going to put your applications before this industry ranking group. Remember I showed you that slide with all those mining companies listed? Those mining operating companies are going to be the people that are going to be able to give us some ranking. They're not selecting projects, they're just ranking them on value and importance. Of course, their work is useful because it'll feed right into the project selection process. So we do plan to look at inviting a shorter list of applications to submit full applications sometime in February of next year. And then we're going to obviously receive those full applications March, April 2023, and we'll be able to then select some projects for funding. We're thinking that around May of 2023 is around the time when we're actually going to start going through that approval process. And we're hoping to hold another event in Toronto in another event in Toronto in June 2023, where we'll be making some announcement on projects to be funded. So we have already approved 16 projects. We're hoping obviously to approve at the minimum 14 other projects, because our KPI is 30 projects funded by MICA, right? So we want to make sure we meet that KPI, but we're hoping that with $18 million, we may be able to do a little bit more than we were able to do with $11.5 million. So this is sort of the process that we're going to follow in walking through the proposal process. I wanted to bring some highlight to the project selection process. I did mention to you that we're going to have an industry ranking group, right? The industry ranking group is going to be mostly only mine operating companies. The reason that for this is we want to get the voice of the end users, right? The buyers of the innovations at the very end, those mining companies, as to how they view your proposal that you're submitting into MICA before we move into full applications. There's also going to be a project selection committee of the board set up, which is going to be led by a board. Sorry, to have a board representative on it. Sorry, got tongue twisted there for a moment. And this committee is actually going to do the selection piece. And I want to just emphasize something. The MICA team, the MICA staff members are not part of the project selection committee. So we don't select projects. So Charles does not select projects. And we're also going to be doing our due diligence assessment processes to make sure that the projects that we are shortlisting for funding are deserving and are ready. And then there'll be funding awards and announcements, and also things like endorsements from our government on projects to move forward. Okay, so how do you apply for funding? Well, you go to our website and you specifically go on this link here. And when you get there, right, when you get to this link, in which I'll go on in a little bit, you will be asked questions, around creating a login in username, password. And again, so the MICA portal, for those of you who are already MICA members, the MICA portal itself is different from the submission process, because we're actually trying out a new customized solution that can allow us to more easily receive your applications and to review them in a more efficient way, because we're trying to be as modern as we can. So you'll be able to save your work in progress before you submit, and you'll be able to submit before you become a member. So for those of you who are kind of wondering, oh, do I need to become a member to submit? You need to be a member for us to evaluate your application, right? And to review your application and to put into the project selection process. But we don't want to delay those of you who may, be working towards becoming a member, but want to submit something quickly enough. You will not be required to submit any attachments. So don't worry about PowerPoint presentations, PDFs. Don't worry about videos and everything else like that. What we're asking you is mostly just going to be content that we want from you. And only member applications will be evaluated. So you have to be a member for us to evaluate. Another piece I want to say here, which is really important, is that we are welcoming international members to come into MICA, but international members will require a Canadian applicant for their application to be looked at under MICA. And again, for those of you who just want to stay connected, to MICA, you feel free to register to stay connected with MICA right here via this link that you see here to register. Okay. So let's talk a little bit more about the CFP2, which is the call for proposal number 2, supporting documents. We do have an initial application guideline online that you can read. So if you go to the website, you can read a bit more about the application guideline here. And also, if you want to sort of get an idea on what we mean by technology readiness levels, you can also go to this link here and you can see what technology readiness levels are available for, what our definitions of TRLs are. Again, I did mention earlier on that we do also look at the commercialization readiness levels in order for us to better assess applications in the full application sections. So here's a couple of instructions to consider. We do encourage you to answer all the application questions that are being asked of you. And for those of you who want to submit more than one application, and remember you can submit more than one application, please make sure that you have a separate application for each funding request. And when you go into the portal to submit your applications into the project intake forms, you'll be able to see a mechanism for you to do that. Again, your initial application must be completed and submitted no later than January 13, 2023 at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. And initial applications will enter the project selection process once MICA membership is confirmed. So entire here is enter. It's a mistake I made on this slide. Sorry about that. All right, eligibility. So there are some overarching requirements that we have here for you to apply for MICA funding. Remember, you must be a member in good standing with MICA Network. So with a minimum SME level 1, You must be incorporated in pursuant with the Canadian laws in Canada to be able to carry out business here in this country. And also you need to have that presence in Canada. You must have secured or moving towards securing funding for the project to match the MICA investment. And we can talk more about that because everybody's a little bit different in terms of their journey towards securing funding. And you must have a Canadian SME partner as well. That's a requirement for you to consider. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take us to the MICA portal for submitting projects. And I'm going to just walk you through what it looks like to submit a project. So I'm going to do a couple of things here. I'm going to I'm going to stop sharing this particular screen that you see right now, and then we'll kind of open up a new screen for you to see. So I'm going to stop sharing that screen. Give me 1 second. Okay, I'll stop sharing the screen, and I'm going to load a different screen, and then I'll share that so that you can see it. Just give me a second. All right. Okay, so I'm going to share the screen that I'm going to use to show you what next steps looks like. So this is the screen that you end up when you click on the link for technical projects. And once you get here, you're just going to scroll down here. There's quite a bit of information for you to look at. You can look at successful projects that are already online, and they're right underneath here. Or you can click and learn more about the new submission process, right? With the submission deadline of the 13th. So I'm going to click on it right now. So here we go. And here you're going to get a place where you're going to see those guidelines I mentioned and the TRL level descriptions. But right here it says initial application form. You click on that, right? And the document is going to open up this page, right? When you get here, if you don't have an account, you're going to create one by clicking at this little link that says create one right underneath here. But I already have an account, so I'm going to log in. Okay, so I'm going to click log in here. And my username, password information is already in here. So I can just click here to log in. So here I have logged in. So once I log in here, you can see here that it says application list. I can actually go back here and I can see my application in progress. It's already right over here, but I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go here and I'm going to start a new application so you can see what that looks like. So as you can see, I'm starting a new application in here, but I already have one in progress. Okay, so just to make things easy, I'm going to go back to the application that I have in progress so I can edit it. Oh, I already submitted it, so I can only download it. Sorry, so I'm going to have to go back here. And start a new application. I just want to show you what information you're being requested of here. So you can put your name in here. Again, you can put your name down. Okay, I'll just go quickly and put SEMI is my organization. I'll just put my first name, Charles, here for you to see. And we'll go down. It just take me a second to go through this screens with you. And I can also put down my email address, which most of you already know, but I'll put down here anyways. You can put your email address down here, send your CA. And you can put your address, okay? And we're here in Sudbury, so I'm not going to put my full address, but you should put your full address. And you are in Sudbury, and you're going to be asked to select a city, a province that you are in, because we need this information so that we know where the interest is coming from. And you can also put your postal code in here, and I'll just put some numbers for now. A telephone number is requested, and it's pretty straightforward process where once you've entered all the information, you just go to the next screen, and another set of questions come on. And in total, there's 4 sections where you can enter information, and it's pretty straightforward. The information that we're requesting from you. You can see here that we're asking questions about TRL level. We're asking questions about your project, what MICA themes you're looking for. Very straightforward questions. And then once you answer all these questions, you go to the next screen where you get asked more questions about your project. But all the questions are pretty straightforward. There's nothing really that's going to take you too much time to answer. But again, we just ask that you take your time to make sure that you're as succinct as possible in answering those questions, okay? So I'm not gonna go through all the entire application process because it'll take me a bit more time to just keep on answering all the questions, but we wanna move on with the presentation. So I'm going to stop my share of that screen and I'm gonna go back to share the PowerPoint deck that I was showing you earlier on. And right now we are at the demo of the application process. So we're gonna move on from here, okay? And I am gonna email you a sample PDF submission, the one that I did for MICA, just so you can see what questions you'll be asked. They'll all be in that PDF. So you don't have to go through the entire application process to know what the questions are. The PDF I send you after this call will have all those questions in there for you to see quickly. Again, for those of you just showing up, click on this with your camera on your phone. You'll be able to open the QR code to the same link over here, just to save you some time from typing. Okay, so this brings me to the end of the presentation. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open up the floor for questions that you may have. So I'm going to stop sharing this screen. I'm not going to stop sharing this. I'll keep this up in case you want to email us at this link. But I'm going to go in the question box. And also I'm going to enable Sherry, my colleague, to also be able to speak to you on the call. So I'm going to just open up Sherry's mic. And then her and I can address some of the questions you have together. I am going to go into the chat box here and see which questions are yet to be answered. So let's do that. And thank you all for your comments. I see some comments in the chat box here.
Them, Charles. Okay.
Okay. All right. No problem, Sherry. Thank you for that. Sherry, maybe we can start off with some questions that you haven't answered yet. Or if anybody has a question that they would like to ask maybe verbally, just put up your hand and I'll be able to see your hand and I can enable your mic to have you ask your question. Okay, sorry. I do see a hand up. Let me just find out whose hand is up. We do have a lot of people on the call, so I'm scrolling through quite a bit to find you. Give me 1 second. All right. Oh, there we go. It's Emily. All right. Emily, I'm going to unmute you so you can ask your question. So here we go. Go ahead, Emily. You can unmute yourself.
Yes, hello, Charles. Emily Thorncourte from Thorn Associates. Thank you so much for that overview. My question is related to the point about must have secured funding to match the MICA investment. So obviously, I'm sure that includes all the public funding. Does it also include private funding, such as an SME, such as ourselves, Thorn Associates do? The funding that we have privately provided, is that included, or is it only from other organizations, or can it be from the applicant themselves?
Yeah, certainly the funding can come from other sources as well. But I will tell you what we actually did for the last call is that we recognize that the time between phase 1 applications and phase 2 applications, full applications, and even up to approval, that some funding that you have may be waiting for you to get MICA funding approved. So we are sensitive to the idea that there can be a slight delay in confirmation of funding. But I will tell you that when we get to sign you up as an approved project, we do need to have the funding secured by that time. We don't want to end up in a situation where we approve a project that hasn't secured funding. So Emily, I hope that answers your question. And Sherry, do you want to maybe add to that as well? Sherry, Sherry, don't mute yourself. Stay unmuted, please. Thank you.
Sorry. Okay. I guess I muted myself because I was typing. Yeah, no, that's exactly it. So normally there was another question about when the funding has to be secured by. So basically, as Charles said, we're doing it sort of by the full application deadline. So not at stage 1. But basically, it can come from other sources. So Emily, you're talking about some of the projects that we funded under round 1, they had other partners that were providing funding, and some of them, it was strictly the organization that was undertaking the project was funding the remainder of the project. So anything that MICA was not funding. So if MICA is funding 30% of the project, they were funding the other 70% by their own internal sources. So that's fine. And just to highlight one of the questions somebody did ask that I answered is the stacking limit. So all government funding for the project can only be 75% of the total eligible costs of the project. And I just saw another, yes, cash contributions only, it's not in kind. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. We do have another person with their hand up. So I'm going to, so folks, if you're typing in your question and we don't answer it right away, we are going to take this chat box and we will be creating a bit of an FAQ from it. So please put your questions in there. We will get to them all. I'm going to ask Chao to unmute. So here we go, Chao. Please ask your question. Go ahead.
Thanks very much for the presentation. So I noticed that in the intake portal that it asks whether there is existing customer or client that use your product or service, and how many years that you have been working on the mining sector. So is there a requirement to have an existing customer that use your product to be able to get that funding?
No, it's not a reason for, it's not a requirement. We're asking the question so that we can get to know you a little bit better, so that we can know how to best maybe work with you in the future as well. So that's why we're asking the question. And we are actually encouraging cross-sector innovations to come to mining that have no track record in mining yet, but have validated their solution for application in other places. So we're very open to that. So by no means are we using this question as a way to filter you out. This is a question for us to get to know you better, and so we can be more transparent with the mining companies as we're presenting you to them as an option for funding.
Okay, thanks very much.
You're most welcome. Sherry, you want to take another question from the chat box?
Sure. Let me see which one. So there's a couple questions we're going back and forth about the, this was in the first call for proposal 2 about the IP remaining in Canada. So there is a requirement under the funding program that the IP that's funded under the MICA funding, so the project created IP remains in Canada for 5 years. So that does not mean that if a project is to, let's just say you're developing a technology that's going to be sold or utilized outside of Canada, that is fine, because that's the whole idea of the program, is actually to build up the organizations and allow them to sell and to export as well as using Canada. The issue is the IP must remain in Canada in the sense that it's underlying that the government isn't providing us with this funding to fund organizations in Canada to build them up and then turn around and have them sold outside of Canada. So there is a 5-year window on that from the time the funding ends. And yes, there are terms in the funding contract that specifically says that the funding must remain in Canada for 5 years. So if that doesn't happen, then the organization would be in default of the funding contract, and then other things would happen because of that. So.
Thank you for that, Sherry. Yeah, another question maybe to pick up here is from Pierre. Pierre, you asked a question about the project duration limit. Look, MICA funding right now runs out 2026 September or so. So we obviously want to make sure that all our projects, have reached their objectives by that time. So if you just do the math, right, we don't want projects that are going to be like 5 years, because this is MICA Network as we have it is not structured to be around for that long. So we'll say project durations that are, under say 3.5 years is likely the ones that are going to be able to see daylight by 2026. So I would ask that you maybe consider that in your timelines. We want to make sure all the projects are funded by the time the network reaches its end.
Okay, so I'm going to send just one here about a procedure to apply in Quebec. Should they apply through MISA? No. Although MISA is one of our main partners and they can help you potentially if you have questions that if you're not contacting us directly, all the applications go through the SME office. So online that Charles did with the membership coming through here. So you don't apply through MISA. They are our main partner and they can help you with questions potentially.
Definitely.
But yeah.
Yeah, and we know, and want to encourage everybody on the call here that please feel free to contact the main partners, and the information on how to reach main partners will be provided to you in this PowerPoint deck when I send it out in the PDF format. We do encourage you to speak to the main partners in your area, because that's why they're there, right? They're there to also be that help for you in your local environment. And one of the things that I found very beneficial in you talking to the main partners in your area is that they can also direct you to some other provincial or regional funding programs that can be leveraging MICA funding. And we don't want you to miss out on these opportunities that you might have available for that. Yeah, there's a question here where I said, I answered MICA ends September 2026. Well, you know what, I shouldn't have said it that way, but yeah, the contribution agreement we have with the government for MICA is up to a certain period of time, right? So the formally, it'd be accurate to say it that way, but our vision for MICA is that MICA continues, into eternity if necessary, right, if required. So my mistake in saying it the way that I did there. Yeah, I have a question here that I'm going to read out and then I'll answer it. It's Mike Price asked the question is, has MICA updated your process to ensure that shortlisted companies will actually be in line for a funding grant or contract? Yeah, definitely we have streamlined that process, Mike. What we want to do is make sure that anybody who's shortlisted provides quickly, within a timely manner, the evidence of the ability to have the fund in place. But I think more importantly, Mike, for you is that the amount of money that we want to allocate for this funding round, we will make an effort to make sure that we are very clear on what that amount is that's going to be allocated, so that there's no change kind of halfway into the process. Because I think, Mike, you're referencing what happened last time with the call, where we had an allocation initially of more funding, and then as we went through the process, that amount got reduced. and resulted in some projects not being funded that were shortlisted. So we will make sure that we don't repeat the same thing twice. Mike.
Sorry, I'm just going to add to that, Charles. Also, don't forget when we're going through the process, like when we get a short list of projects, it also doesn't mean that we have to have enough projects there basically that have been evaluated and we've done the due diligence on so that we can move forward with the contract. But I think as with any other funding program is sometimes, let's just say we have $10 million to distribute, we may actually shortlist projects that come to say 12 or 15 million, because during that process, we've had other ones that have dropped out for various reasons throughout. So then we have the next one sort of ready to go and we don't have to, the process has already started with them. So it's kind of that balance between shortlisting and having everything ready to go. So if we have $10 million, we're not, we've shortlisted usually projects that are asking for a little bit more than that, just so that we have, we make sure that we have enough to fill the pipeline when the actual, it comes to signing the agreements.
Exactly. Thank you for that, Sherry. We want to make sure that we've got enough in the pipeline for sure. There's a question here from Jesse. Sherry, I don't think we've answered this question, but the question is, what if the original IP is created and patented in the US? So this is saying if the IP is created and patented in the US, can it then be developed in Canada? I think this is one thing that Canada needs to get better at is commercializing IP from other places here in Canada. It's already happening to us as Canadians, right? Where Canadian IP gets bought and commercialized elsewhere. If we can get an opportunity to start to commercialize here in Canada IP coming from other places, then I think we definitely welcome that opportunity. So Jesse, the answer to your question is definitely yes. We can develop the IP here in Canada, commercialize it here in Canada, and any expenditures that are made towards that IP being mobilized in Canada could be potentially eligible for MICA funding. Okay, I see another question coming up here. What if your company gets acquired by a non-Canadian entity like GoldSpot did? Sherry, do you want to answer that question?
What if your company gets acquired by a non?
Yeah, I can take a shot at it too, Sherry.
Yeah, sorry, I was just reading it again. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. No problem.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So look, the whole point of MICA and where MICA funding flows, it has to flow through a Canadian entity. So I think if you look carefully at the GoldSpot acquisition, you'll see that there's actually the retention of a Canadian entity that is still, able and eligible to apply for MICA funding. So that's, I would say it in that way, that if your company gets acquired by someone else, we would ask you the question, and you are proof of funding, and all this happens in the perfect way at the same time, then we would make sure that the ultimate recipient of the funding is still going to be a Canadian entity.
Yeah, actually in the GoldSpot example, they actually were, the part that was receiving the MICA funding has been spun off as a separate legal entity in Canada. Like so yeah. But there are some other organizations that can apply. They have a Canadian presence, right? And it operates sort of independently. It doesn't mean that you can't have an SME or an organization that doesn't have international ties to it, but yeah. Gotcha.
And we have a question from Daniel Clough. Hi, Daniel. How far back is the starting date? We already have funding and have already started the project, but we have plans extending into the future. I think for the second call for proposals, when we actually have that full application process either started or received, Daniel will let you know which one of those dates is the right one. Yeah. It's either going to be the date we ask you to submit a full application or the day when you submit a full application into the network. But I don't have the answer yet. And Sherry, unless you have some insight into this one.
No, I think I answered, somebody else asked that question. And what we did in round one is the eligibility date was the date that the full applications closed and had to be submitted by. So we probably will use that as a guideline. Somebody did ask if they had applied in the first round, but weren't successful, if it could go back to that, but it would have to go, this is like a separate round. So the eligibility would likely only be the date, I'm thinking, that the full applications closed to be consistent with the first round.
Thank you for that. And again, there's a question here about SME membership being minimum to apply for MICA funding. The answer to that would be correct. SME 1 level is required to apply for MICA funding. Have your project evaluated by MICA, period. There's a question from Melinda Moore about the TRL levels.
Oh.
Melinda, I think the best way to answer your question on TRL levels is that we actually have a form that describes the TRL levels. Yeah. So we will provide you a link to that in this PDF, so you can look at it. Our TRL definition is consistent with what the government of Canada uses. So that's sort of how we're defining those different TRL levels. So we will send you that link for you to see those TRL levels defined.
I just put it in the box. Okay.
Oh, well, thank you.
Okay. Is there anything?
Yeah, there's a question here from Patrick.
Yeah.
Will more information be made available regarding expressions of interest collected in March from the IRG members in CFP1? As expression of interest were made 8 months ago, we have leads now gone cold. Yeah, so Patrick, I think your question here, how we have answered the question is that we did get some comments and some feedback from the IRG members, but we were waiting until we have announcements on whether your project was moving forward or not before sending them out. So a little bit before we issued, we had our conference in Toronto in November. We sent out the comments that we had received from the mining companies on projects. But again, now that we're moving into CFP number 2, are we going to do a little bit faster? Yes, we're going to do a little bit faster, give you that feedback right away, because now we realize that some of that feedback could be very useful for your full application. So make sure you get that feedback a little bit sooner. The mining companies did express interest in some projects, and we're in the process right now of talking to mining companies on how they would like to move forward. We don't want to just send them a listing of companies and email addresses, because we don't really see a lot of traction that happens when we do things like that. We want to have a more fulsome engagement with mining companies. We're asking the mining companies to give us some context as to how they want to see information packaged and presented to them from the people that are applying for projects. So please expect to see that as we move forward into this corporate proposal process. There's a question here. Will the same mining companies from CFP1 be reviewing CFP2? Will additional companies be added to CFP2? Yes, for 100%. Hi, Shelby. Shelby, for sure, we're going to add more mining companies. Just to give a bit of a heads up, Tech is now becoming a MICA member, and we have other mining houses in line. Companies like BHP just finishing up the process to become MICA members. I think maybe I'm doing a bit of a spoiler alert here. But certainly we have other mining companies that we are bringing into the MICA network as volunteers on this IRG, because we believe that giving the mining companies awareness of what's coming is equally as important as you getting funding, right? Because we need the mining companies to know what's coming. And so our IRG and the breadth of it is very important. We are very open to even talking to mining companies from outside Canada so that we can have more interest in your technologies. At the end of the day, mining is a global business, and we want to make sure that your technologies get as much exposure as they can get to the global mining industry for adoption. There's been cases that and I think maybe some of you on the call here would agree with me. There's been cases where vendors have actually commercialized all the technology outside of Canada first. So we recognize that. This is why it's so important for us to have mining companies on the IRG to be able to look at the technologies that are in the MICA portfolio. A question from Karen. Hi, Karen. Do we require proof of IP registration applications initiated as part of qualifications? You know what, Karen, we haven't been asking for people to provide us evidence of it. But you know what, this is one of those things where we have sort of said, no, the people who are applying, once we get their full application and we review it, we have not felt the need to go and sort of ask for that specific patenting numbers and everything else. But maybe it's a good idea to ask in case someone wants to deceive us and tell us they have an IP that they don't have registered. But again, maybe as part of our due diligence, Karen, we should ask for those patent registration information, but it hasn't been an issue for us to date. It has been an issue for us in all the other programs that we've done where somebody has misrepresented themselves in any way. Yeah, and Karen, you don't have to have a patent to apply for MICA funding, just as a FYI. What you need to have to apply for MICA funding is obviously a project that's eligible, that's at the right level of development, and a project obviously that's going to have an impact on the industry in a way that is going to allow the industry to transform itself. It has to be a clean technology. So the qualifier for MICA project submission is not having a patent. Sherry, here's a question for you. Is a draft of the funding contract terms available for review during this phase of the application process?
Normally what we've done is after the initial phase, and once we didn't do this for phase one just because we didn't have the contract already. Now we have the contract obviously ready because we've utilized it already. What we've done is for the after the initial application, if applicants are invited to go to the full application phase, then we can make it available then, because the full application phase is when we ask for more of a detailed budget. You'll notice in this initial application, we basically ask for what is your estimated total project cost and what's the amount that you're asking for MICA, and then the difference being what you've secured. So there isn't a lot of financial information requested at the initial application at all. It's more about the project. So we usually make those available. We would make those available along with the full application package. And then people can decide if they want to advance to the full application.
Okay, thank you for that. Maybe just to read a comment in the chat box here. Brian Bass is just commenting that, I guess this is more like a recommendation, is that your path to commercialization, that's one area everybody should make sure they're as clear as possible in that area. Melinda has a question, noting that we are requiring $1,500 for membership at initial application. I'm not sure what the question is exactly, Melinda. Maybe I'll let you clarify your question there. But Chris Morgan has a question. What level of development is required for the process? What if you're just integrating current technologies into a system that is not currently on the market? Yeah, look, innovation by definition is a combination, Chris, of different things. So, you know, if you can make a case for combining different components in a way that creates some additional value, that is something that can be considered for sure. I'm quite sure most innovations out there are combinations of things that are existing. So yeah, 100% for sure.
Okay, I just want to clarify, because this question's been asked a couple of times about the membership. So although there are two phases, the initial application and the full application, you do have to be a member at the minimum level of an SME level 1 in order for your initial application to be considered. So remember when Charles went through his thing, the initial application, they're going to go to the industry ranking group. So for that to happen, the membership has to be confirmed. So there is a membership required for that application to be processed, and knowing that maybe not every single one will be asked to go on to a full application.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. Yeah, again, I think Melinda asking about the question about the legal agreement with applicants. I think as Sherry has said, you know, phase 1 applications are not yet invited to full application. The full application is really sort of the stage before approval, and once we get approval, then it's the agreement phase, right? So what we've felt works at this stage is providing that legal agreement to the people that are sort of moving into the agreement phase, because it really is only relevant at that level anyways. So that's sort of why we have kind of pushed it to that level of consideration. Yeah, Pierre, what's the delay to get membership approval once submitted? I would say it's as quickly as we can get to it, I guess, but we're moving fairly quickly already. We do have a lot of membership requests coming in at this stage, you know, typical. So when you open up at the next call, but certainly, you know what, if you give us maybe up to a week to get back to you with the whole process, because part of the process for membership is that we have to interview you, get to know you a little bit better before we onboard you into membership. This has been part of our process to have a conversation with you prior to you go through the membership process, but we are fast-pacing the process. One of the things that we didn't want to do is just send you to a link to make a payment, right? We just thought it was not very personal and it wasn't really going to engage you in a way that builds a relationship with us. So, you know, having an interview process really makes sense for us to be able to get to know you a little bit better. So that's sort of our process for now. And
also, sorry, I just wanted to add to that if you submit a membership application through the website and then you do an initial application, we will, you know, we're not going to hold up the initial application if we see that there's a membership application there. Of course, ultimately, when it comes to sending all the information to the IRG when it's closed, then we would sort of take a look at it. But don't think that if you were to you know, if tomorrow you were to submit a membership application inquiry, and then you also wanted to start your initial application, feel free to do that. Don't hold that up until we get back to you about your membership application.
Thank you for that, Sherry. Question from Paul Abe. Paul is our Sask Poly MICA rep as well. And his question is, around the recording for today. So yes, the recording of this will be available on YouTube sometime today, and we will send it out to everybody. We will also be sending you this PowerPoint deck, the one they just watched me present, in PDF format. And I do have another deck that I'm going to send you with a few more slides that expand those technology focus areas, just because productivity, energy, environment, and smart are not sufficient to give you the whole fullness of what we're looking for. So we will be giving you a copy of that as well, so you can see what all those potential technology areas are that can be included in MICA. In terms of what is the minimum funding request? So Lisa, thank you for the question. I think we have been discussing internally around 200K or so. We don't want to have too many small projects, but 200K is sort of a lower limit that I would say we are comfortable saying at this time. Now, if you do submit a proposal looking for 150K, we're obviously not going to not consider it. We'll take a look at it and see what your value is. Maybe that's all you need, right, to be able to commercialize your technology. So we don't want to just encourage huge projects. But I will just reemphasize that we do have that $2 million limit at the top side, simply because, you know what, though, we've only got $18 million. $18 million to spread across 10 provinces and 3 territories, right? So we want to make sure that we can maximize the projects that we fund. But at the same time, you know what, it's quality over quantity, right? So we also want to make sure that we have those quality projects. And so that higher limit goal is to about $2 million. Yeah, Jim, excellent question. Sherry and I were just talking about this earlier. We do have a guideline for project costings and for what's eligible and not eligible, but Sherry, may I let you answer that question?
Okay, yeah, I mean, I guess we can definitely put that up on the website. We just usually haven't done that again, similar to the funding agreement, only because we're not asking for all of the detailed budget, like line by line items, sort of what is direct labor and things like that. So we typically haven't done it at the initial application phase because we weren't asking for a budget. We typically did it. It's very much in line with a lot of other federal government programs, but we could probably put something on the website if we think that's going to be helpful to people. Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you for that. Okay, folks. There's another question here. Does the minimum 200K for funding is the same for network supported project funding? This is a message from Carolyn Olson.
I don't know what that means.
So look, any project that MICA funds, you could say it's a network supported project. But if you're talking about MICA activities, that could be a whole different conversation.
I don't know I'm not sure if I'm understanding this, Caroline, but are you thinking that the 200K, the minimum 200K is the 200K that MICA would give towards the project? So that would be sort of like 1/3 or 30% of the total project. Does that make sense? I think that's what you're asking. Like, it's not 200K total project.
Yeah.
It's 200K. Yeah.
Let me unmute her, Sherry. I'm going to
Okay.
Caroline, if I unmute you, are you okay with asking the question directly? Okay. I don't see Carol on the call.
Or maybe she's not.
Oh, she's unmuted. Carol, go ahead. Caroline, please go ahead. Okay. Caroline, your line is unmuted. You can go ahead and ask the question directly. Okay, I think we have missed it. Okay. All right, let's go to the next question and we'll come back to Caroline if she unmutes. Oh, there you go. Go ahead. Okay, we'll come back to Caroline. What other methods of funding is there if they're not proven technologies and require R&D? Trying to understand this question.
So are you asking what other methods of funding there are if they're not on the appropriate TRL level? And they actually need more funding for like lower level, like not lower TRL level research versus a higher TRL level?
Yeah, maybe Sherry, I'll take a stab at this question.
Okay.
Look, some projects may be as a project at a higher TRL level, but the component that they need to finalize may be a little bit lower in terms of, if you want to call it the TRL level, or it may need, work at an applied research college, or it may need at a university level work. It doesn't mean that the whole project is at a lower TRL. They may just be, so MICA funding could be applicable to help you to advance those R&D components that are necessary to customize a solution to make it work in a better way. Okay.
New innovations, but not developed yet.
Yeah, that sounds like it would be like fundamental research or early stage research, which is not where MICA's sweet spot is.
No.
Okay, so folks, we are at 3 o'clock.
One more quick one. Oh. Sorry, there was a question that Brian had mentioned about, I think that just as a general thing, we're trying to get projects from across Canada as well. Mm-hmm. MICA is a national program, so we're definitely trying to get projects, submitted from across Canada to be representative of all of the areas across Canada, just to keep that in mind.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, no problem at all. Thank you, Sherry, for that. So folks, we're at 3 o'clock. I just want to thank everybody who came on the call. We have your questions captured in the chat box here. So we're going to be able to actually look at all those questions and answer the ones that we missed out, and we'll put them on an FAQ moving things forward. You have our email address. Feel free to connect with us, and we're looking forward to working with you as we move things forward. So thank you for your time. Have a good afternoon, and everybody stay safe. Bye for now.